I think I got it. There we go. We're good. All right, we're live. All right, sorry, gang. We we had a little technical difficulty there. It's part of it. You guys are just gonna have to adjust mentally. There's nothing we can do. Okay, so
okay.
That's part of the
part of the whole 2020 experience, right?
This is hold my beer. So our main thing is to keep people guessing, right? We don't want people being thinking they know what's going to go on and whatnot. So that's what we're doing there. So we got two people in the waiting room. Who we got? Who's our bomb? We got Tony Darnell. He must have got out. He's back in. Tony is in.
There we go.
Back.
All right, guys. So first show, we got Rhonda on. Again, we're going to do this again. We already did it, but we're going to do it again. Rhonda, talk a little bit about yourself, your background, what you've done, and what you bring to the table.
I'm going to be really quick. So I come from the athletics background, university management, and sport and fitness and wellness, and managing student recreation centers and doing strength and conditioning with different athletics teams, and found my way in logistics, and I'm having a good time. And COVID has been a great, or let's say COVID has allowed me to really dive into what exactly my team brings to the table, and all about an opportunity to learn all about the supply chain. So it's been amazing. Good time. Making the best of it.
And I'd mentioned too earlier that my degree is in sports medicine, and the weird way in which somehow logistics, just there's something about it that if you've got background or knowledge anatomy or in the body, it's just something about it that draws you to it. And that's one thing that I've always fascinated about you, Rhonda, was that you work for a logistics company, correct?
Excuse me?
You work for a logistics company, correct?
I do, for Global Trans.
Yes.
In Arizona.
Mm-hmm. And with your background and your skill and expertise being in the anatomical and physiological field, it's just how much involvement you do have in the supply chain and everything is awesome. It shows how much of a learner you are. And that's one thing that's always drawn me to you. Just people that want to learn. That's something that I love doing. That's something that Tony does. Well, Tony is more of a teacher. He's not a learner. We
Student.
We learn from Tony. That's how that works. But Brandon's on the road. Sorry, guys, we had tech issues. He's on the road. He's a little discombobulated. You can tell by the vest he's wearing. But we got a good show for you today. There he is. We're going to talk about driver recruiting. And one thing that that ties to it is not just recruiting, but just recruiting always just kind of revolves around what the status of drivers are in general. And you look at me and Tony talked a little bit the other day about how when capacity doesn't just go up and down and rates don't just go up and down, they shift from market to market, from niche to niche, and commodity to commodity. And you see sometimes drivers either follow that or stay in their lane, and you'll see people struggle in different areas. And with the volumes being so high they are right now, and money, when we talk in our situation where we're at, is a lot of the good drivers, a lot of the guys that are quality owner operators is what we recruit. They're working, they're good where they're at. They're making money. They're not looking. And at the end of the day, because going through when the COVID shutdown, happened and nobody was making money, they should be. I mean, and they want to be. And so that's one thing from the owner operator side I see on my end. But there is a trickle down effect, because it affects everything. As much as people want to say a driver shortage, there's drivers out there. There's just a lot of them aren't working. And there's some that got out of it early, whether it was due to, how they're treated, how they're paid, things like that. I think there's a lot more advocacy for not only driver pay, driver treatment, driver health. I think that's a big thing that goes into it, because you're seeing a lot more. You're seeing the Wayne Craigs and the Ingrids and the people out there. People are getting to know who they are and what they do and what they go through. And when you get that, the amount of empathy, right, which is the key factor in any type of movement forward or progress, it's seeking to understand. Sometimes I think they realize, but I don't think they realize how much of an impact they make when they put that out there and they make that a reality. So it's something I've tried to do. I've got a lot of drivers I love. I got a lot of them that are a pain in the butt, but every one of them work hard, and my job is to set them up for success. And no matter whether me and that driver get along, or I get along with all of them, but we're good buddies, or they are. It doesn't matter to me. That's not my job to do that or care about that. It's to make them money, to keep them safe, and to meet their needs, because that's what this is all about. So for me, that's one thing that I always push for. But Tony, I know Tony, a little different dynamic on your end, eh?
Yeah. We got we have the luxury of being like a 99% local fleet, so we get to pay our guys hourly. And that's, coming from a guy who made mileage and drops for years and years and years, waiting and giving up 2 hours before we got detention. And then the overall, you only get like an hour of detention. So if you average that 1 hour of pay over the 2-3 total hours that you're waiting, it still wasn't that much money that you give away for free. It at the end of the day, we would have killed for hourly wage. And now I am able to afford to have a business model that we hire and recruit hourly drivers. And it's so funny because they still want to, a lot of the guys that come straight into that haven't ever been on the road and haven't ever been paid a percent of the load or a mileage rate with drop pay or detention. And they don't get that it's okay if you're on the clock to go do something. And it's interesting because there's advantages and disadvantages of it. But the first thing I do when I get to some place where we have a fleet is remove all of the advertisements and anything that says that we're looking for drivers, because any place that's looking for drivers, I don't want to work as a driver. If you need drivers, there's a reason. I go out there and I find the best guys I can find and I make them happy, and they bring their friends. The best recruiters in truck driving are truck drivers. Brandon can vouch for that. He's been driving. If you know somebody that works at a place that treats you well and makes you decent pay, you will tell all of your friends about how great your job is, because that's what everybody driving wants to say.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they're going to bring their friends, and then you'll have the best fleet in town.
I think you can add that to any job or any place or anywhere you work. If you treat people right, you do the right thing, and you're taken care of, you're going to tell people, you're going to tell friends, come work with me. And I think no matter if you're a driver or not, that just goes without saying that, if you're a good company, people are going to want to work for you.
That's exactly what happens in driving. It's just because the industry has that 90, 100, 105% turnover rate, it's amplified in this field.
And we got some Canadians in the comments there, and no, not Canadian. A lot of the Knutsons though are from Minnesota. If you get my dad a couple Molsons in them, you'll really hear the accent. And we get up north there's a lot of Norwegians up that way, a lot of Knutsons, and so it's just something that comes out of me when I'm drinking beer. But get home, turn on a good hockey game, and have another sip. For sure. But Marina's coming on here soon. She popped on there for a second. We had some technical difficulties at the beginning if you weren't on, and so that was really, really fun, and we figured it out. But Rhonda, you had jotted some notes. Hey, Marina.
Hi. There she is.
Hey,
there you go.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no
Excited
problem.
about the show.
And if Maria, it's nice to meet you as well. With you coming on and me traveling a little bit, I'm gonna let you have the floor. So I'm gonna go ahead and step out. But I wanted to come on and say hi and welcome Rhonda, and just wanted to tell you thank you for being on the show, and we appreciate it.
Big driving, Brandon.
Yes, Brandon, if you guys weren't joining us earlier due to the technical difficulties, he is in the middle of his CDL training to re-up. He already has a CDL, but he's renewing his license. So a lot of that was him going between the cones and doing a couple parallel parking. So, but we've got faith in him that he's going to make it. So, Marina, I know me and you have been on Mad Gangs together a couple of times just from the carrier perspective. I always thought you brought a great perspective from that end, and you've mentioned, that recruiting was near and dear to you there for quite a while. Touch a little bit on your experience with it, and then kind of what you're seeing, and then also the type of recruiting that you're doing, type of driver as well.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for having me. I've been around drivers since forever. My dad is a driver. He's an owner operator. So he's been doing it a long time. I've taken cross country trips with him. I've seen him fill out his paper logs and trying to figure out what that was. And I told myself I'll never be in the trucking field. And I'm like, this is way too stressful. I saw him, his owner operator was very dedicated. And here I am. I've been in it for like 7 years. And I started off Apex Transit is a company that my husband and I and his brother own. And so we're small, we're only 33 trucks. And so we're not big. We're able to really focus on the family aspect of it, bringing in good drivers and keeping it just kind of small. But I did the driver recruiting for a long time. And that was my favorite part of the job because I love meeting people. And having my dad as a driver and seeing that driver part of it, and my husband was a driver for a while too when we started the company. So when I talked to them, I knew what they were going through. I knew their struggles, so that would appeal to that. And I also my recruiting strategy was to treat them as individuals, as they have their own needs too. So it was very personalized because I had the time to do that. I only needed 1 or 2 drivers at a time. I didn't need 50, So it's just nice that I really got to know and got the best of the best. And some of the drivers I have now are still my best friends. My current driver recruiter is a driver right now, and he's just like he's the best. He knows all about what we're doing, and he's been. I kind of coached him into how I was doing it, and anyways, I'm nervous. I'm gonna have some more wine. So
There you go.
what else do you want to know?
No, that's good. I think if you look at it, a lot of people had relationships with driver, and I think the basis of the industry, it'll always be the core foundation is the drivers. There's no way around it. And the people that don't realize that and don't connect with that don't make it. The people that come in and they try to ignore that fact and not. I mean, Tony, your dad was a driver, right? Your mom and dad. Yep. Marina, I know Brandon. For me, even not necessarily did I have a family member that was a driver, but when I started, it was in a dispatch role at the old yard. Like they were in the office. Like I got to know they'd take me out. Like they wanted to show the young buck everything about everything out there. And my son, when he would, at that time I only had one child, and he loved coming to the office to see dad because there was trucks everywhere and they were huge and they were running, right? Because they were sitting there running. And the one driver who I grew real close with and took care of me. And he actually drove his truck up to my house. I live about 20 minutes north of Fort Wayne, and into the neighborhood for my son's birthday party, and pulled up, honked the horn, and they all got to go out and see it. I mean, it was a really cool experience. It's something that once you realize what is going on out there and what can go on out there, I think it makes you that much better. And Rhonda, I know, when you look at your experience, not just working for the type of 3PL you work for, but what are some of your experiences with drivers, that you have that's kind of touched you a little bit?
Well, actually, I grew up on a junkyard, and some of my uncles were truck drivers for Armalides. I don't know if you've heard of Armalides. They're a small business, truck driving business in Florida. So my perspective growing up was back in the day that it was the struggle. They didn't have the resources or technology like we see today. And there were a lot of struggles in terms of how they traveled state to state and different barriers along the way. Things with cargo theft was a big deal. But they took pride in their job and the significance of it. And my uncles used to run fruit. Fruit was the big thing. They run it from Florida to Vineland, New Jersey, which is not far from where I grew up. So they really are dedicated. The old timers, I call them. They're really dedicated to their job. Blue collar workers, and they deserve respect. And unfortunately, you know, at least what I've heard, there tends to be assumptions about drivers, you know, not being super responsible, and you hear all the negative stuff in the media as far as crashes and maybe some issues with, you know, driver fatigue and things they're doing to stay awake. So I think today, really focusing on the drivers that love what they do and they're using social media and they're getting the message out. Like they're, in my opinion, some of the best tools for driver recruitment. The ones like you had mentioned earlier, TJ and Tony, the ones that are passionate about what they do. And they can just showcase all the value that comes with that. You know, not everybody is meant to be a driver. We all have different personalities, but a lot of people like that solace space, you know, and bringing a pet, you know, and just having some of the resources out there to make it safer. That was one of the first things that I was picking up on, how unsafe it is for them. And that was just concerning for me. And, you know, and now I'm very cognizant. My husband and I just took a vacation during Thanksgiving. We drove down south, and I'm very aware now, and I'm just looking and just seeing them pulled off on the side of the road. Like that's not the safest place. So I know that Anthony P, he's done some talking about what he brings from Truck Park, just, you know, trying to find out what it is that they need and finding that and finding something to meet their needs, just to make it a better, well experience for them.
And it comes down to conversations. And I've said this on I don't know how many shows. Talk to drivers. Just talk to them. I'm telling you guys, if you want to learn stuff, you know, you can listen to us on this silly old Hold My Beer show. You know, you can go on these other shows and listen, right, to us gab about it, but talk to drivers. They'll tell you exactly what's going on out there, how it works, and, you know, what they need and what they look for. And you have a responsibility to them. I tell you what, and I'm not going to go on too much of a tangent here, but one thing that I'm very, very passionate about, and in my operation, I'm very serious about, and they know this, is the responsibility and the role of dispatchers when it comes to drivers. I have seen it way too many times in which the dispatchers do not care and do not put the effort in. They'll leave a guy stranded. They'll leave a guy sitting. They'll, you know, it can't be that way. And that is what you find a lot. That's a lot of times the relationship between a broker and a carrier is really a broker and a dispatcher, when the driver would probably rather get on the phone and talk it out and figure it out. But there's a lot of responsibility there that I think sometimes gets overlooked. Not everybody, again, it's not everybody, but it's something that's very important that could play a huge role. You know, one thing I used to do is, you know, it wasn't just finding a guy a load. It was, you know, it wasn't just finding him a backhaul. I asked the guy to run a load for me in an area he doesn't usually go. My responsibility is to make sure he does it, you know, or even just respect to him is I'm finding him a backhaul. And then I'm also looking around and finding him a place to park that night. I'm calling around. I'm asking, you know, if this hotel will allow it, if this place will allow it. You know, I'm not putting that on him, because, you know, I could clock out at 5 and go home and ignore him all night while he does all that. But how's that build that relationship? And how does it make him want to run another one for me? Yeah. And what does that play in recruiting? Because I've always talked about this when we meet on this all the time. You can recruit as many drivers as you want, but if you don't have driver retention, it's worthless. Yep. There's no point. You're spinning. There's no efficiency. I'm all about efficiency. There's no efficiency there if you're just keeping yourself at the same level, because you're recruiting to get them in, and then you're not treating them right, and they leave. So,
they know if you have their back. If they can
yep.
That. So,
yep.
It takes about 10 minutes to figure that out.
Yeah.
Marina, what are your thoughts on that?
So actually, I love what you're saying, because all of my dispatchers have their CDL licenses. That's how they started, by driving and learning the road. So the fact that they understand the hours, they understand, they're not going to be like, oh, you slept at the ship, or you can keep going. If a driver tells them, I'm tired, we'll get it. All right, you go ahead. We're not going to tell you had plenty of time to rest, because we know what it's like to wait at a ship, or so you can't get any rest because you're sitting there anxious. When are they going to finish? So that is a big part of our model as well. You have to know the inside and out of the truck. You have to know what it's like. You need to know the hours of service because you can't be a good dispatcher if you don't understand all of that. So them that's I agree with that 100% and having their back. A lot like our drivers are friends with the dispatchers. They'll actually go out and, have a beer together or do something after work and it's that relationship. That's what it's all about. Like you said, the retention, if you just hiring. One thing I wanted to add in the hiring process, what I notice is like, especially I'll go on ads on Craigslist and Indeed and see a lot of over promising. Like there's just everybody wants, and drivers know that it's all BS. They're tired of it. They can see right through. So if you're honest and transparent about it from the beginning, that's when you get the good candidates in. So that's what I would do. I'd tell them, listen, I'd rather under promise. I'll tell them less and surprise them the first week. I'll tell them they get paid less than they actually do. And when they get their check and it's a lot more than they thought it was going to be, that's the best feeling in the world. Is the driver pay is important too. So just,
And that's that. I think that there's a big flow that is very, very necessary between safety, operations, and recruiting. Now, there is also a big one thing I found is that you got to let people stay in their lane and do their thing. There can't be, you can't over impede into what they're doing. Okay. You can't be pushing at safety saying, get these guys through the door, get these guys through the door. Their safety has a job to do, right? They're in that role for a reason and let them do their thing. But there needs to be a flow between it as a recruiter, I've got to understand exactly what lanes we have. We've got our head recruiter, Jen, has been with us for a long time and she's great. She brought in somebody to help with some of the applications in the day to day. And the guy's just a great learner, young kid, picks up the phone. I sat him right in with dispatch. He sits right in with operations. That way, she does her own thing. She couldn't do that. She's very busy, but he sits right in there. He understands. He's hearing the lanes. He's hearing what we're doing backhaul wise. And that translates over hugely because now instead of, that's one thing a recruiter, Jen, would get very, frustrated because she didn't mean to overpromise, but that's what she was told, right? I mean, that's what she was given, right? And so we got to give correct information. They got to have exactly what we have. And I like to get on the phone with him or talk to him as much as I can. I've got my top dispatcher, Alex, who meets with him every single time. The guy's a genius when it comes to routing. And because I want them hearing exactly what we're doing. I love sales. I love landing accounts. And so I always want to recruit and bring drivers in because I'm always going to bring in freight. I love freight. So, but to convince somebody of that, because there's been people that told them that all the time, it's tough. You got to differentiate yourself a little bit.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Every ad out there talks about driver pay, home time, it's all the same crap. We've all seen it. Being out there on the road, there's entire magazine racks in every truck stop that every national company has a brochure in, and it's like the tourist attraction thing outside of Orlando, Florida, when you stop at a gas station. They're all the same. Everybody wants you to come spend their money at their attraction, and it's all crap because they all promise the same thing. And you go in there, that's why retention is so bad. You go in there and you feel like you're cared about and they're telling you the truth. And then 6 months in, you figure out that they're just the same as everyone else. And then they go and find the next guy that's promising them something until they find some place to call home.
Sometimes it's just a few weeks in, honestly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, or the first paycheck. That's what I hear. That's why that makes a big difference.
Marina, what have you found helps with driver retention?
Feeling like they matter, like value, appreciation. They're all going to make about the same everywhere, for the level of experience, but that they're important and valued in that place is little things, just like, being known by your name. Like drivers, I hear that all the time. I hate that I'm just a number. I'm a truck number. They don't care who you are. It's just what's your truck number, when you call in. Getting to know them, getting to know their family. So what I did when I was recruiting is I would be on the phone doing a phone interview sometimes for like half an hour to an hour. I wanted to get to know them. I asked them, like psychology, so everybody has different things that are important to them. So is it the money that okay, we'll give you more, the harder lanes. Is it home time? Okay, we'll give you the local job. So getting to know what's important to them and kind of putting people in the right place. Because I talk to them about their family, I ask them about their kids, how often they want to see them, like
Yep.
things like that. And just as every time they come in, how are the kids? Oh, how are they doing with COVID closures? Are they in school? Just asking them questions, getting to know them consistently. That means a lot to them. That's helped a lot with the retention. The drivers that stay with me are the ones who I feel are just like are they're good, really, really good people. They're the ones that I've taken the time to get to know. As I've transitioned out of that role now, and so I have somebody else doing that, and I do miss that part sometimes. And when Marcus is doing my recruiting, I'll come in and be like, "Hey, I want to, meet you. How are you? Tell me." And I don't care. I can care less about their experience because they've already passed. I'm not going to ask you how many years you've been driving. I want to know about you. And people can tell like when it's genuine, when it's real, and
Yeah.
and that's what's helped a lot for me.
And I see, the same dynamic that when I was on the broker side and came up through and transitioned into the role in which I handed off customers, right? In which I was no longer working directly with customers. I was overseeing the accounts on the brokerage side, and it was tough, but it was what built me to that point. What had gotten me to be the top producer was that I took care of things. Like my customers knew I was going to handle it. I mean, literally that was used. Handle it was like they knew it. When I went into handle it mode, it was done, taken care of. TJ's got it. Didn't matter what time of night.
Yeah.
And I used that with my drivers as well. It worked. It's the same type of dynamic in which when they know you're going to take care of them. I mean, every one of the drivers in my fleet, they know they've got dispatchers to talk to, whatever. But if there's something wrong, they know they call my cell phone, and I'm gonna handle it for them. I'm gonna take care of it, and we're gonna get it handled. It's gonna happen, and they like that, and they, you build that relationship with them. I know when I was coming up through and really building how many drivers I was actually running, I remember, my boss at that time was like, hey, like you're transitioning, you spend a lot of time on the phone, and I was almost burned out. I mean, I was on the phone with these guys at night. My wife got to know some of them. I was like, oh yeah, it's Chris, and
Yeah.
but you got to know the dynamics of, there's certain things why people run, why people like certain lanes, and why they want to do. They won't come out and say that, I'm a little pissed off because I took this load originally and said okay, and now all of a sudden I'm upset about it. And instead of taking that personally, maybe it's because they didn't tell their wife, and their wife reminded them that, hey, you got to be home, right? And you got to be here or there. And now they're frustrated, right? And there's always something behind it. And so I always tell like my dispatch, don't take it personal. Don't just let them get it out, figure out what the issue is, what's going on with it. And a lot of times they'll come out and tell you. And then once you know that too, you can like, you can be like, oh yeah, well, I did it one time. I was like, I'll send you over a fake Raycon that says that with a load that was what you were supposed to get. And then you can just blame it on me. Just tell them I got a different load or something, and whatever you got to do, and help them out. It's not always that situation, but that's what it is understanding them. But it starts with leadership. So if that's how I wanted to do things, when I was personally moving these drivers along, or on the broker side personally working with these accounts, then that's how I need to project and how I need to lay it out for those that I'm now developing and bringing in. And so that's the importance of it. But that's an owner operator. I mean, we've got large accounts and way over the roads, all owner operators. There's some that live close, some that come through the area, some that are going to stop through this week and get some deer meat. I promised them. So, that's the cool part. But the local stuff, Tony, it really intrigues me. Talk a little bit about your driver retention when it comes to, I mean, we talked on the recruiting side, but the retention when it comes to those local fleets, the hourly pay.
Say again. My internet sucks.
Oh, sorry. We've talked a little bit about, I'm talking from an owner operator. Marina, do you guys have company drivers or owner apps?
Company drivers and owner operators.
Okay, so you got both.
Yeah.
And you guys are you guys over the road high mile stuff, or is it you got both?
Yes, we go to Texas.
Okay.
Let's go to Laredo, Texas every week. That's where we go.
Boom. All right.
It's fun.
Catch up a little gold lane there, huh?
Some really good Mexican food in Laredo. I've been there a few times.
Yes, there is.
It's the best. And you feel like you're in Mexico already, but it's fun. Good beer too.
But Tony, talk a little bit about the local stuff, like how not only we talked a little bit of recruiting, but the retention side of it too. When it comes to that, it's a whole different dynamic. When you talked about, I don't want to hire a bunch of drivers, I only want so many. you know, the difference there is like, hey, I just promised, I just won this award. I got awarded 15 new lanes. I gotta have drivers, compared to, this is what I do because I'm a shipper, right? I produce, I know what I need to put out and I know where it needs to go. I only need this many drivers. What's the dynamic there on retention?
Right. So I can see about what we have through February right now. And I know that there's going to be more between now and then. So I can anticipate growth and retraction. This is why I like to be a shipper at a manufacturing place, because I'm not waiting for the phone to ring. I can walk outside my office and look in the plant and see whether business is up or business is down. Do I need to hire? Do I need to look for other homes for some of these guys to make sure that they stay working? Knowing, just having your guys know that you have their back, going out there and doing the extra things to make sure that they understand that, hey, I've been a CDL guy. I know how to do what you're doing. I'll come and help you. I had a guy that hadn't slid his fifth wheel in a while. It was stuck. He was trying to move it. We got this trailer that we were using, and it was a step deck, and he was trying to adjust his fifth wheel so when he turned, the mud flap wouldn't break off. Simple, right? Except it was hard and it wouldn't slide. So they asked for help. I go running out there and I'm like, all right, try this. And they were like, holy crap. They didn't even believe that I knew how to do that. And I had 3 guys come up to me afterwards and they're like, man, we really respect you a lot because you came out here and you helped us with that. And nobody's ever done anything like that before. We were just on our own before. And I said, man, I've fought that battle. I've struggled with that before. I've had to take it into the shop and have it fixed. I've had to, I've been under the trailer with a torch making the brakes unfreeze in the middle of a polar vortex winter, and
what else did you do, Tony?
Dirty with them.
When I went up there, visited your plant. That's what I like. I've said that before. I like. That's one thing with drivers too. Is when I got a customer, I want to see what the docs are. I want to be able to tell them. Especially if it's a shipper they may not know, like, how much room they've got. Is there parking on site? How many docks do they have? What's the name of the guy you're going to talk to? Is there a guard shack? I want to know all that stuff. I mean, that's key to getting drivers to run your lanes as an owner out. But what'd you do, Tony? You had the awning you put on over the docks, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, we extended the end of the buildings to add some dry area the trailers can park in underneath. It's basically the north wall wasn't on the building. You just have a roof and the side walls, but the end wall wasn't there. The trucks back in and load out of the rain. The guys are standing out there loading the stuff. They're not standing in the rain. They're not standing
right?
in the
Because
snow.
they're out tarping. Yep.
In essence, yeah.
And what else did you do? You did the.
We also added about 50 feet of concrete.
Yep.
Out there because there wasn't enough room for them to turn around right. We wanted to give them enough room to not tear up their equipment. Then outside of that, we added electrical poles along the end of that so that they could stand up there and park and plug their truck in at night.
That was the biggest thing. Yep.
Wow.
I thought that was awesome. You don't see shippers doing that very often.
$2,000 to put the trucks away right and have them start up in the morning and be able to run. I mean, it's self-preservation.
Mm-hmm. And that didn't just help your drivers, it helped your forklift drivers too, didn't it?
Oh yeah. Gave them more room to work too.
Rhonda, from just how much involvement you got?
Jump in and say, when you're in charge of a team, there's something to be said about getting down and getting into the nuts and bolts of the day-to-days with them, and not lock yourself in the office or just be, communicating through the phone. Like, be there in spirit with them and helping them and being a part of that team. I've always made sure that I've done that in my role. I'm not going to ask somebody to do something that I'm not going to be willing to do myself. And lots of times I'll do it for them and have them take a break or do something else. And that just it's all about building those relationships. And again, then knowing you have their back, you have their best interest at heart. So.
And let's talk about this, Rhonda. The one big part of not only whether it's physical therapy or even personal training is the mental aspect, right? Mm-hmm. The fact that some people do it just to go talk to their trainer, to vent, to get the extra out, but it just in the standpoint of what you deal with on a day-to-day basis of a logistic mind, somebody, whether it's a driver, a broker, you're in 3PL, right? You got brokers, you got all what's on their mind of how much what you see, what you can bring to that to help with not only retention, but also just mental health in general.
Well, I was going to jump in, but I was trying not to interrupt because I have a habit of doing that. But like being that punching board. So when somebody wants to whine and go, like we have a huge punching bag in the fitness center at Global Trans, and how many times somebody comes in and just knocks it over, or gives it a couple jabs, makes a lot of noise, and off they go, bye bye office, back to their desk. So just having an outlet. We all have good days, bad days, and different things maybe at home or struggles that people don't know about can impact our job when we get to work. If you get up late or stuck in traffic, and it's just being in tune and letting people vent, be a source of vent. I'm in an interesting position because I'm not quite HR or people ops. So when I do health consultations, a lot of it is behavioral health related besides the physical fitness stuff. I mean, I always that's important, but to me, your mind is the most important thing. And if you're not in a good space, it's going to impact everything. And, that's not good. So, listening to some issues my team is having and then kind of doing some conflict resolution with them. Not everybody has exposure to that, and just listening to what they say and then giving them a different perspective. And sometimes that itself can do wonders. Or, just taking a look at what are the stressors in their day and then kind of helping them map out how best to navigate the struggles they're having, and then encouraging them to, what I love about my team is we're very team spirit oriented, and just having that conversation with somebody that maybe you're having a disagreement with, whether it's together or with, another person in the room, that really can do wonders. And again, it's all about being authentic because people can read that. So, and just we do a lot of meditation or different little mini activities to pick each other up. And that's really, really been helpful. But, sometimes, like I said earlier, sometimes it's not necessarily something I can on the job. Sometimes it's just somebody's not getting sleep, and figuring out and giving them a game plan. Okay. Or they don't realize that they need sleep, or maybe they're drinking too much and nobody has really brought that to their attention. There's so many nuances that can affect our mental health. And if we're not taking care of our noggin, it's going to impact everything. So it's really, and we all have the capability of doing that just by having those relationships. That's the best way. And people know when they tell me something, I am not going to open my mouth. So they can trust me and I have their back. And that's important.
You know what I thought about?
I give my guys that option all the time. That I had a guy come to me who's relatively new today, and he said, I don't want to ever go and yell at somebody or just complain and spread that negativity. That's what I do with you. And I said, exactly. I am your safe place. You come to me and you vent and you get all that out because it stops here. And they love that. They love the fact that they have that place to go to where they can still vent and get it out and vent their frustration, because shipping is frustrating.
And and just like what TJ had said, when his driver will talk to him, being that punching bag for them to just let go, just the mannerism of saying it is a stress release right there.
Yep.
So, the beautiful thing is I thought about this when we were talking about this topic, and there's something about your role around it, just because that's what I used to do. That's what I still love. I just, when I was doing physical therapy or personal training, I was doing both. I was in kind of a hybrid role, and I transitioned over. That's what made it so easy, was that there's such a close dynamic to just listening and letting somebody, and this is what I always say, and I always have to explain it, because if you just say it, it sounds bad, but drivers are going to bitch, right? They're going to bitch. Let them bitch. And you would too. And this is why I always say this. And you would too, because of what you deal with. And here's my thing. When you deal with something and then you sit alone for an entire day and think about it, think about that. Now, this plays a huge role here. So so when I say drivers are going to bitch, they are. Let them. All right. And I'll tell you what, you want to build trust, let them do it. Be that outlet for them. You're going to build that relationship even quicker. It feeds over. This is that trickle down effect I talk about. I started in dispatch. I went over brokerage for quite a while, helped develop that, grow that. One thing that I always talk people out in brokerage, a lot of times you'll deal with it with an irate dispatcher. Guys going nuts. I need this. I need this. Right? Brokers don't understand it. They get upset. That's that dynamic there. That's why they don't like each other. They don't understand it. Right? I would tell them. I said, you know why this guy's so upset right now? Because his driver is in his ear for a couple of reasons. Number one, he made a mistake. Right? Now he's trying to put it on. He may be trying to put it on you, but it's hard not to when you got somebody in your ear just bitching you out. Right? Just yelling at you because you messed up. Number two, they've got the driver that is irate that they still have to deal with, right? So they're trying to get whatever they can from you to help ease that blow of what they're going to have to go deal with. Understand that, provide them a solution. I would get on the phone with on the brokerage side, and it was unbelievable if I started the conversation off with, hey, listen, I was on the dispatch side before. I used to run, 15, 20 drivers. I get it. What's he saying? What's he saying? Well, I haven't said anything to him yet. Now you're going to get out of him. He's either you're going to say what he's actually saying to him, or that he hasn't talked to him yet. And it gives you a avenue to decide how you're going to solve the problem. And now you're working with him rather than against him. And it all comes down to understanding the driver. If you take the driver out of the equation, it becomes a personal thing between those two people emailing or calling. It's a situation, and it always stems back to the driver. And unless you understand that, you can solve situations in the mental health side of things, in the dispatch side, in the brokerage side, in the shipping side, if you can understand what drivers are going through, thinking, or experiencing.
Yeah,
And like
TJ. Yeah.
And like you said, it's when we let these things that are bothering us just fester in our minds, they just blow up and they become bigger than life. We know that's never ever good. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was going to mention the word that is, obvious, but it just makes all the difference: respect. If we all respect each other. I tell that to my dispatchers. I tell that to my drivers when I did the recruiting. I said, listen, if you ever feel disrespected by anybody, come and talk to me about it. And then we'll put it. And I have my door open to the dispatch room. I can hear them all the time talking to drivers. And I feel like a dispatcher is being and I can see why. I mean, they work so hard to get that load, and this customer's on them, and the driver's late because they didn't do this, and they can get upset about it too. And it's easy to start being disrespectful to the driver about it. But I'm like, that is not your job to reprimand. You're not their dad. Just listen. If they did something wrong, we have safety for that. We have the write-ups. It's going to be a separate. Don't do it while they're on the job driving, and all they can think about is that mother effer was disrespectful to me, and they're in our trucks. They're mad. Don't do that.
And it festers.
Yes, that's
I've
what
been
it is.
that guy.
Yep. Let it go. Leave it alone. Say, okay, you didn't make it. You didn't make it. That's fine. We'll talk about it later when you come back. When they come back, listen, this is what happened. You dropped the ball on this. These are the policies that we have. We have to write you out for it. But you as a dispatcher have no right to discipline any of our drivers. That's what I say. Sometimes the dispatchers can take that role and they can become disrespectful. And that's where a lot of the problems come from.
You know what else is great is, and that we've got that going where, either it goes to safety or they come to me, right? So the dispatcher would come to me, and it gives them an avenue to vent then. So they can vent to me, right? I can then understand the situation and either act like I'm going to have their back or actually have their back. But then, but see, now I can address it from, and sometimes I'll tell you, drivers, sometimes you got to be stern with them, but not in a disrespectful way. The word respect right there is the biggest thing. And so they'll call me and they'll be going off, and I'll say, whoa. This ain't happening. All right. I will respect you, and I am here to listen to you, and I want to help you. Okay. But you got to do the same with me. And so, what's weird is that you're stern, but you're respectful in that situation, but it instantly calms it down because they know that you're serious. Not only are you serious about respecting them, but you're serious about helping them. And when you're both yelling and screaming, nobody understands who's serious and who isn't. And that's a very, very good point, Marina. Whether you're a dispatcher or a broker, it's not your job to recommend the driver in that way, and never do it while they still have your freight.
And sometimes we have to teach them that because they just might not know.
And that's leadership. That's on the brokerage side. I talked about dealing with dispatchers, and I talked to my dispatchers about dealing with brokers. When they're dealing with, this broker, just listen. Here's the situation he's in. Okay, he ran the offer by it. He thought he had it covered. The account manager went with something different. I'm almost teaching these like how it works over there. He's just as pissed off too. Okay, he just let it go. Okay, we get it. Let him know that and move on. I mean, there's times you got to address it, but at the end of the day, it always stems back to the fact that the driver is involved, whether you see it or not. And that's for me. Why I wanted to say how it touches on everything is because as a broker, it is key. It is imperative to understand that, because we talk about sourcing carriers. You're not sourcing carriers, you're sourcing drivers. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, the carrier has X amount of drivers, but if you aren't giving them something that they can be successful with, or they're the ones giving the feedback. So when the carrier says they don't want to work with you anymore, it's probably because the driver said they didn't want to run the freight anymore.
Yep.
So if you can find a way to take care of the drivers and set them up and understand them, and even then, if you get permission from the dispatcher, even or the carrier, to communicate directly with the driver and make a relationship with them, that takes a little bit off of them, but it's way more crucial than what you think.
Yeah.
What time is it?
And after.
All right, here's what we're gonna do. Nicole was our rock, man. She was like our I don't want to say mom.
Oh, sorry, I didn't. I was gonna
No. But
watch the time, but with the delay, I wasn't sure.
I'm a talker. So let's do this. So we'll start with I don't know how everybody's screen's set up, but let's start with Rhonda. Then we'll go Tony and Marina. And you guys touched just a little bit on. I just kind of touched on it, but your thoughts on the overall, recruiting, retention, and how it affects each side here. We'll just each take a couple minutes here.
Well, what we talked about the most is like being respectful, being authentic, and respecting one another. It's a two-way street. So the drivers have to have those same values, with us, because we know it doesn't work one way. So finding the right people, being respectful, listening to them, and actually listening and trying to make their job a little easier for them, and practicing empathy and compassion, especially now. If anything, this year has definitely taught us, it's opened our eyes to the struggles they're having, particularly with the pandemic, and just also allowing them some flexibility to make the changes they need, whether it's, changing their schedule or whatever it is to make their life a little easier, because everybody has, countless struggles going on right now. And just having some flexibility and practicing kindness, really.
I'll give you two perspectives. That's awesome. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you the two perspectives that I have as the shipper running the fleet and as a driver who's been a part of that fleet. As a shipper, I want to create an environment where drivers want to work. If you can create that environment where they want to work, they'll bring their friends. There's no need for recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as a driver, not only do I have to find a place that's like that, where they want to work, and I want to tell my friends that I work, and I'm proud of it, and I'm not ashamed to tell them where I work. I also want to be the guy that welcomes the new guy. I know drivers, I've been guilty of this. We're always worried about what the other guy's doing. We're always nosy. We want to know, how come he's got the good load? What's the good load? The good load for this guy is the bad load for that guy. It's all subjective. And if we worry about ourselves more than we worry about the other guy, instead of worrying about comparing yourself to, as a driver, I want to go out there and do the best job I can do on my load. I want to volunteer for the crap and watch my stock rise with my dispatcher, with my owner, with my employer, with my company. And they're going to sit there, and pretty soon, 6-8 months of that, a year, you're golden, and you're the go-to guy, and you're getting all of the loads that you want because you give. So as a driver, I'm going to be the guy that does the stuff that nobody else wants to do. I'm going to do the hard thing. And then I'm going to go welcome the new guys and offer them the easy stuff. Get them going. Make that a place where they want to bring their friends too. And then you don't need retention and recruiting departments.
All right.
Role modeling, exhibiting the behavior. And that's trickle down impact too. So everybody's doing that. Wow. That's where I want to work.
Yeah, for me, what I notice makes the biggest difference is taking a little bit more time in the beginning, that initial phone call when they call and they're interested. Take 15, 20, 30 minutes sometimes and talk to that driver. Find out what there is. Be super honest and transparent about what you're looking for. Don't try to sell them and bring them into the door just to get them in, because you're going to waste so much more time on that application and so much more money on the background checks and then the interviews and the orientation to find out, well, you know what, actually this doesn't work for me because I need to be home on these days. So that's the biggest challenge in the retention that, or change that I've noticed that's made a big difference, was just talking to them at first. I actually have a checklist of what we need at Apex from other drivers. And if they check off all those lists, all right, come on in, go ahead and let's do the list. And once they come in, show them around, introduce them to everyone, make them feel like a part of the, that's, luckily I can do that because it's smaller, then they come in and actually, we still do interviews in person. It's not on Zoom, which has been tough, but, and then we do meetings once a year, right? This year it's going to be challenging. It's going to be like a drive-by, come and get a lunch, a box, and your gift for a driver appreciation, doing things like that. Feeling appreciated is a big part of retention. So that's my 2 cents in on it.
Yeah. I think, just to kind of cap it off here, it comes down to honesty when it comes to recruiting. When you're in a market like now, it's persistency too. It's also, drivers see the same ads. Like if you're running if you're always hiring and you're running the same ads over and over, there's a reason. I mean, they're smart. And it's that, I think if you want to get their trust right off the bat, right, to separate yourself, comes down to a couple of things. There's honesty, but you got to prove that honesty somehow, right? So what I like to say is there's efficiency and education. So I look at it from the standpoint of, well, like Marina said, if I'm just trying to get them through the door, it doesn't make sense to me. I'm all about being efficient. Efficiency in motion is what I always talk about. And if I'm going to waste my time getting them in and then it not working because I figured what was the point there? That's an up and down capacity that doesn't benefit my customers or the drivers, but I want to educate them and in a different way. Because you're going to get drivers that are educated, right? That know more than you, and they should know more than you about driving and whatnot. But educate them on your operation. Educate them on what your goals are, what your ideas are. If I've got a driver that's on the line that said, "Hey, I was just, I'm not making enough money over here," and I go, "Oh yeah, I wondered you were at the Pilot last night, weren't you?" Yeah. Oh yeah, I bet you were talking to all those guys. You're in Iowa, huh? Yeah, all those guys running across country, right? Yeah, they're all running out the Cali. Yep, you know what they're making. Well, guess what? This is what I'm doing. The reason we're running this is because I've got a 2-year contract. I've got this lane, When things go down, the rate does not change. This is what I've done. This is what I'm telling the customer. This is why we're doing it. This is why it's more secure. This is why sometimes they don't even know. Like a lot of those guys, I know you talk to them, but a lot of them are bragging right now. And when you're usually bragging, it's usually because at one point you didn't have it.
Yes.
Which means they're probably running the open board, which you've already said you don't want to do. And educate them on what your ideas are. Why, I could call a guy and say, "Hey, listen, I got these. If I take these first 3 loads real cheap, we'll get in with them." They said they'll be up to the spot board. That's good stuff. He'll run the first, and I describe to him what my goal strategy is. He'll run those first 3 loads for cheap. Maybe I'll bump him some more fuel or whatever. And then he's on board with me, right? He knows what the plan is, what the end goal is. If I just send him at 3 cheap loads, he's like, what in the world's going on here? So for me, it's being honest up front and having that conversation like Marina said. And if you want to try to convince them, give them idea of what your operation is, tell them what your goals are, right? Something that they can come into and see an end game, right? Something they could shoot for, and how you're going to take care of it and how your operation works. And if they're not sure on how the operation works, they're going to go in with worst case scenario in their head. And the first thing you do wrong is just going to be, what it's going to do is it's going to bring up a vision of a place they were before. And it's all down.
True.
So that's my take on it.
Awesome.
What a great crew.
Yep. Everybody, if you're on LinkedIn, go follow each of these people on here and follow them, subscribe to the YouTube channel, listen up, check back in next Thursday, but watch for these nuggets that these people are putting out on LinkedIn.
Yes, Marina does a great job. That's why, I asked her to come on here. We're going to come out, keep your eyes out coming up here, because Rhonda just brings a different dynamic. I mean, that the leadership, the relationships, everything that she brings, and the energy, you know, we're going to have a show here coming up with Justin Shepard, and we're going to talk a little bit about, you know, the mental health side of things and how, you know, health in general. I think it's a huge topic. I think it touches Marina would agree. I think it touches on each aspect of it. And there's drivers, you talk to drivers. I mean, I got a crock pot now, you know, I'm doing this and I get out and I walk this many steps a day. And so the more we bring it to light, I think we had some great takes to get today, guys. And sorry about the technical difficulties, but I got to get in and learn it a little bit more so we don't rely on Brandon so much. He's moving at the time. And but thank you so much, guys, for being on. Everybody in the comments were blowing up. A bunch of Canadians out there representing. So good to see them. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your night.